are you, mate? It's a pleasure to have you here today.
I'm fantastic, dude. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's a nice, beautiful day in Australia. Very, very warm. So if it's cold over where you are at the moment, get ready for some heat because it is hot in Australia at the moment. So you're going to feel it.
We've had about the last week was full of record number snow and negative temperatures, and then currently it's just pouring rain outside. So I'm ready for
Yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. Heat waves and beaches down here, mate. You're going to love it. And speaking of that, last time you guys came down, I can't believe it. Was literally right before the lockdown. It's kind of crazy. You
Like
must have been,
days.
yeah, you must have been one of the last bands to actually kind of play down here because I know the Who, the Mongolian band, they flew to Australia, didn't get to play a show, so you at least got lucky.
I remember I've told this story, but we were in like Perth at the airport flying home, and on the news it was like, oh, like first, 6 cases of COVID in Melbourne, 22 cases in Sydney, and like our whole band was like, glad we're getting out of here, man. Fuck, man, let's hit Australia. We got to get the fuck out of here. Like it wasn't gonna hit the States, and then everything just.
Yeah, no, I was one of those cool cases that caught it in January of 2020 when I was over in Florida. I guess if I was going to catch
Yep.
it anywhere, it'd probably be on the cruise ship
That's
in
where you catch
Florida.
it. That's
Yeah.
where you catch it. Yeah.
But how's it been? It's been a wild ride since 2020, man. You've kind of, I know you're no stranger to singing for ATREYU, but you've kind of stepped
Yeah.
into the role of the front man. How's that journey kind of been?
It's been awesome. I think that it's something that was a little bit not daunting, but a little scary at first because you're worried about, you know, how it's going to pan out, how you're going to be able to perform on stage, and how people are going to react. And I think that the reaction from fans, new and old, has been so incredibly positive and welcoming that
Mm,
it's made the whole thing very easy,
yes.
and very comfortable. So obviously, there's going to be people that don't like it or whatever, but the majority have been so kind and welcoming of the changes, and it's made everything a lot of fun.
It was always one of those things because you were always the voice of ATREYU regardless. It was just more of a curiosity thing. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do. So I guess that with the last two albums led into a lot of experimental writing to see what ATREYU can
For
do going
sure.
forward.
Yeah, and it was really trying to put all of our strengths forward, and obviously if you really have ever paid attention to Atreyu albums, Porter has been screaming a lot of times with Alex since Death Grip. So
Mm,
Porter's been screaming on our albums since Death Grip. So um, that was kind of the main component, was with me up front and having him doing a lot of the more heavy vocals and me doing some of them as well. The familiarity of the band was still intact. It wasn't like
yeah.
some new element that you had to kind of get used to and decide whether you liked or not. It was like it's still the same voices, still the same things kind of going on. So, and then even to the point where like everyone in the band sings on our albums, like everyone does harmonies, like everyone sings live. So it's one of those things where we really try to just like take all of our strong suits, a lot of which that we didn't even show before, and just like put them in the forefront.
Yeah, and it's a credit to you guys as well because it's you've been around for so long now, and you're kind of a staple of the genre for the longest time. I know you guys were the first band I ever heard with the actual heavy screaming vocals, not just a big yeah and a rock song. And I remember first
Yeah.
hearing it, going, "What the fuck's that? I can't listen to that." That obviously changed over time, but
Yeah, yeah.
I still remember to this day that exact moment, and it was just I guess it was kind of like you guys, Killswitch Engage. I guess kind of paved the way for bands to come later, like Bullet, Trivium, and all that. How does it kind of feel now looking back at it over 20, 25 years later? You kind of almost started this genre of metal, if you will, to an extent.
I mean, we were definitely on in that kind of early wave for sure. But at the same time, it's like when we were coming up, we were we were admiring and listening to bands like Killswitch. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like we were kind of on the same. It's like we were each holding down a coast of the United States, and kind of riding that thing from the beginning. And I mean, honestly, like we one of like Bullet's first tours was with us in the
yeah.
UK. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So like it's been cool to kind of like have our wave have gone and then seen what came behind it. You know what I mean? And like still be with peers with all these bands, that have come, and some have come and gone, some have just continued to rise. So it's been cool.
Yeah, well, even you guys dipped out for a couple of years there. There was a bit of a break.
Yeah.
Coming back after that, was it a well needed rest to kind of reset and refocus? Because I think the last album before that was that Lead Sails, Paper Anchors. Because I remember seeing you on that tour with Avenged and Bullet.
Yeah, we did Lead Sails, and then we put out a record called Congregation of the Damned.
That's right.
And we kind of like, it wasn't a full. Hold on one second. Hi, sorry. The kids just got home from school and like, wife's talking quiet. Both kids are just talking loud.
Yeah, there's no volume on kids, mate. It's full blown or nothing.
10.
Yeah, it's always a perfect 10.
But yeah, so we put out Congregation of the Damned, and it was not the longest cycle. We didn't tour everywhere we wanted to on that cycle, really. I don't even know if we came to Australia, to be honest. And then we went on hiatus. It was definitely much needed. Like, for us to stop, it takes a lot. So it needed to stop. And I think that, we were able to kind of come back in with a different mindset. And, majority of us in the band really took it to heart and kind of like it reignited our own kind of love for the band. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But we've, it's funny, I say, like, we've gone through hiatus and ups and downs and member changes and all these things, but it's like each time one of those things happen, it just seems to strangely just like light a fucking fire in us. Yeah. So it's like there's been so much benefit from every kind of corner that we've walked through.
And you can hear it on the past two albums, especially the album that came out just last month. It's still so fresh in my mind. I can't believe like it's already 2024 now, which is crazy. Yeah. It felt like you guys were constantly releasing music last year as well. There was just so much. Yeah. What you speak about fire? What kind of lit the fire to release? It felt like 30 songs last year almost.
Well, and to us, we're making this album, and we kind of just it started with just a desire to want to figure out a different way of release where like 80% of the songs didn't just live in the shadows for the rest of time. Yeah. We want to try to have a way where, it could match the, sort of attention span of the normal human these days. And give more of these songs sort of a day in the sun. And I think once we realized we wanted to do that, the whole concept kind of fell into our laps where we were like, well, hey, there's this reoccurring theme that kind of makes sense through all these songs, and it's like this life cycle of sort of like the human condition and emotion and like the lows and highs and the ride of life that kind of like continues to waterfall through this whole thing, much as it does in life. So like it was like, oh, this like each EP could be kind of the full cycle of emotion, and then you start over again, much like you do in real life. Yeah. And then at the end, it kind of shows itself to you where the beautiful dark of life is the overarching theme, and you get, the EP titles and the song and all these things like that. It all starts to make sense as a whole. And, we're not like a high concept band. Like we're not, making double concept records about like pirate lords and, shit like that. Like it's never been our thing. So like for our concept to just kind of fall on our lap and organically just kind of make sense, it was like, okay, this is how we're supposed to do it. And it was good for the listener too, because you got new music, like bang, bang. We kept like forgetting. It was like, oh, EP comes out next week. We're like, oh shit, like already? Like, it was constant, which was really cool.
And it is one of those things these days, and I guess you've been doing it for over 20 years now. You would have seen the different ways, I guess, you market music as well these days, because it used to be maybe music video too, and then the album comes out and there's a music video on release day. Now with Spotify and the algorithm and how everything works, it's almost like you have to start a year before the album comes out releasing these songs. How's that been getting used to? Because I've heard other people in the past say that if you don't do that, then the algorithm doesn't pick up the songs. You don't get put in these playlists and it doesn't get promoted on Spotify.
It's really weird because I feel like there's so much of the industry that wants to move forward and is adapting to more of like a singles sort of method, or even like an EP method, smaller doses of things. But then I think the problem is that most record labels are still holding on to the good old days of like, but there's got to be an album, right? And it's like, I'm the kind of dude where like, I love an album. I buy vinyl to this day. I like to put on a record and listen to the whole thing and flip it and listen to the other side. And but at the same time, if a band put out a song that I loved and I'm like, oh, this song's great, and then like before I know it, 2-3 months later, there's another song, one song. I'm like, oh, sick, another song already? Fucking, that's great. So like, I think I don't know that I love albums, but like I think I'm the minority of like the people that how people are actually listening to music these days, and especially with like playlists. It was funny because like we would do these EPs and like three different songs from each EP would get playlisted on 15 different
Yeah.
playlists every time, and it was like, oh well, this one's got more of like a random metal track, so like the metal playlist picked it up. It was like everything was just spread out way more, and like it was kind of like each had their own little kind of ecosystem where it we're still figuring it out. Obviously, like we haven't cracked the code on it, but we're still trying to figure out like what benefits not only the band but the listener too. What keeps the listener and the fan engaged and happy, but what also like actually does justice for what the band is putting like everything into. You know, like we put everything, every bit of our existence into making these records and making these songs. Like the last thing we want is for 7 of the 13 to just kind of live in the shadows for eternity. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and that does happen with albums a lot of the time as well. Because when you first get an album as well, if you're not paying attention to it, you can skip over some great tracks. I remember
Yeah,
that it's been
absolutely.
years. I've gone some albums have gone back and gone, oh shit, why was that never a single? This track slaps, but I'm guessing there's always different reasons to why not everything can be a
100%.
single. But I guess in the digital age, and it is growing with the times, it is kind of nice to be able to release more songs, spread them out. I was an old school head for the longest time going, no, you just need to do albums. But I don't think Spirit Box was releasing an album in ages. They to keep doing EPs. And how often do you see Spirit Box in the media at the moment? It's all the
And they're
time.
crushing it. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the biggest examples where it's working like insanely is Fog in Reverse.
Mm.
Like love it or hate it, they're fucking dominating.
Yeah.
That dude has only released singles for the last like 4 years, and every one of them has been gigantic, number one, like gold selling, platinum selling. He's selling out the biggest rooms of his life, and it's one of those things where it's like, love it or hate it, like it's a working.
Yeah.
Like, hey, record label, like look what you can do. Like spending your entire album budget on a music video and a song, and it's like seeing what it does. It's like, well, there's something to be said about that, you know. And
Yeah.
so it's you can go either way with it. Everyone's trying to crack the code still, you know.
Well, once you guys figure it out, they'll change how it works, and then you'll have to go back to the start
Yeah, we'll have
again.
to go back to albums. Everyone will
Yeah.
be like, yeah, we're going back to tapes. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. The tapes have come back in a big fashion. I love vinyls. I'm a vinyl collector myself, but the tapes are getting sold again, which I think is just wild. It's cool, but it's
It's
wild.
only a matter of time. Like each sort of format comes back and has its new heyday where it's like vinyl's kind of always been cool, but it's kind of gotten cooler and less cool as it's gone. And there's always been a place for it. I think the cassette thing is hilarious.
Yeah.
Someday CDs, like a band will be like, oh yeah, you know, we're doing a limited run of 1,000 CDs. And people are like, oh wow, look at this cool thing. Like people don't even that's funny. I was always joking with my wife. I'm like, I feel like such a poser. Like I'm trying to get people to buy my album, but if I bought my album on CD, I couldn't listen to it if I wanted to. I don't have a CD player on my computer. I don't have a CD player in my car. I don't have a CD player in my house. Like I couldn't listen to it if I wanted to.
No. I think the only thing that would accept a CD in my house is the PlayStation, and half of those are digital anyway. If you didn't get the disc
Exactly.
one,
Yeah, exactly. So funny.
it's absolutely great. Actually, I did want to touch on something because there was a YouTube short I saw a little while ago, and I love this guy from the Extreme Vocal Institute, David. You guys were working with
Yeah.
him for a while. How was that? Because I find his material and like it was one of those ones. I've been a screamer for the longest time, but when he's explained it, do it like this. I'm like, oh, that's how it's done. Like, how was that whole
That's
process?
exactly what drew me to him. I haven't worked with very many vocal coaches in my life. I worked with Ron Anderson, who's passed, who's one of the legends of the world. I was very lucky to work with him a very small amount during like Lead Sales era. And I worked with a little bit with Melissa Cross, who's like an absolute legend as well. She's one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. And she taught me great things of like kind of more of like preservation and what to do. She was really like detrimental. Like I lost my voice once and it was like, this is how you get it back. And,
Yeah.
you know, so, but David to me was one of those things where that drew him to me where I was kind of in the transition going, okay, I want to find some new voices of my own because one, I'm going to be doing some of the screaming vocals live and on the record too. And I want to I want to bring that as well. Like I want to have a multidimensional kind of, you know, vocal approach on the record that people aren't going to be expecting. And in trying to find that, I was noticing in David's videos that it was like, he'd be like, this is how you scream like this person. This is how you scream like this person. And it was like an ABC like direction of this is exactly how you make. And I'm like, if this dude can replicate all of these different voices, I'm sure it could make sense to me how to do the same thing. So I started kind of talking to him. We did some stuff just over the phone and kind of like got me into some comfortable places. But then he actually came in the studio with us for about a week while we were doing vocals. And he just has a way about him, like touching on your body and different things while you're singing and coming from different places. One of the coolest things he did was he was like, this song to me, we were recording Gone, our song Gone actually. And he's like, this to me is like an old school ATREYU song. I hear like old school, like that metalcore essence. And like, this is like has that throwback, like classic vibe to me. And he was like, I want to hear your voice in like that classic unadulterated way. So he sat me, he was like, why don't you turn this way and kind of turn your head to the left and sing that way and whatever. And in my head, I'm like, must be like a vocal thing. Maybe he's opening up my chest in a certain way, whatever. And I sang the next like 2 takes, and everyone was like, whoa, that sounded insane. Like your voice sounds so like crystal clear. It was perfect. It sounded like classic Brandon. And I'm like, what is that? It's just like my chest cavity or something? And he goes, no. He goes, how did you spend the last 20 years of your career singing? And like this. He goes, I just put your body into a position that in the back of your mind is probably more comfortable for you to sing than you even realize. And it was like, what? like little things like that. Like the dude is. It's funny. Like at first you're like, is this fucking snake oil? Like, are you like, what is this? But he's got a way, man. He's a magic man. He's a nice dude as well.
I can't believe that. The fact that he just noticed you sung so long playing drums is like, well, I'm going to get him to stand like this to get that old ATREYU sound, and that's
and it worked.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Like, the guy is a genius. What would you find easier to do, the fry or the false chord vocals? I find everyone's got a favorite.
I've had so much trouble with fry, understanding fry, and there's a part of me like David's like, no, you kind of do fry sometimes, and I'm like, I don't think I do. He's like, no, like that scream you're doing is sort of fry, but you do it louder than most people do fry because you have a big chest cavity and it comes out louder. But I feel like the false chord stuff is like more comfortable to me, and it's like a lot of what I do live, but I'm like somewhere in between.
And do you find it different live as well? Because I've found myself to do a fry, like he said, you can do a fry. I found it easier to do a fry live than it is to actually concentrate on it and think of it in the studio compared to a false. I don't know what that is, or if you've experienced that as well, because I've noticed some singers will bust out higher screams live, but they never do them on the studio version.
See, I feel like I'm the opposite. I always do like the way deeper stuff live, but I found that one of the biggest things too, and this was something that Melissa had taught me as well, where it was like, stop trying so hard. You know that scene in that movie, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's learning how to surf, and he's like, the less you do, the more you do. He's like, do less. No, like do less. The less I try to make a sound, the cooler sound comes out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's been the biggest thing for me. So like live, especially, it's like when I'm just in the zone and I'm in a mode and I'm hot and it's sweaty and I just like open my fucking mouth. Usually what comes out is cooler than if I'm like in the studio trying to do a cool stream.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. And going back to live, so many songs you guys have got now. How do you go about choosing the set list these days?
Dude, thank God for analytics, my friend. This day and age, it's like, we can just straight up see, like, oh, we're going to play in Australia. What's the top 20 songs that everyone listened to across three of the biggest streaming platforms? It's like, oh, okay, that's mostly what we play anyways. It's like, oh, we could have told you that. Yeah. But at this day and age, it's like, we want to have a good set. We want to have a mix of old and new. We play something off of most of our albums in the set. So it's really like, if you're an old fan and you don't really fuck with the new shit at all, but you're hoping to hear fucking Right Side of the Bed and whatever, like we're gonna make you happy. If you're just now joining the club and you found us from Drowning, you're gonna hear some shit you like too. So it's one of those things where like we've the internet has told us what they like and analytics told us what they like, but it's just us making sure that it doesn't lose energy and is a mix of our whole catalog.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it as well. And funny you mentioned Drowning, because I did want to bring it up. That is one of the best music videos I've ever seen. Who came up with the idea for that? It is brilliant. And the way you launch that kid into the pool at the beginning, when my wife, It's your daughter?
My daughter. Both of the one I launched in the pool is my oldest daughter, and then the girl with the Cheetos all over her face is my youngest daughter. We were like, okay, we don't want to make a serious music video where we're like drowning in water or whatever. It originally started with, let's make a music video based on the pool honey scene from The Sandlot, like where Schmitz jumps in the pool and but there's not enough meat on the bone to chew from that one scene. So we're like, okay, we can't do that. So we were just like drunk on the bus one night, and it was like, what if we like are just like a bully like pool gang? Like you never see like a gang of adults at a pool, like kind of like bullying people and like trying to pick up chicks. And it was like, yeah, but what if the chicks are old ladies? It was like just kind of spawned from there. And then one day we were actually at a pool filming a video, and we were like, how the fuck did we actually get here? And there's old women that we're flirting with, and I'm throwing my kid in the pool 9 times in a row.
Yeah, there's a certain type of magic to that thing. And I was watching it going, I bet Electric Callboy are kicking themselves. They didn't think to do that video first.
I was telling my wife yesterday, I was like, I think I would love to tour with Electric Callboy. I think we have a lot of the same spirit flowing through our bands.
yeah. That'd be a killer tour as well, man. That'd be a lot of fun.
Call us.
Yeah, party tour. Anyway, you are down here next month. I don't want to keep you for too long. It's been a brilliant chat with you this morning, but is there anything you want to say to the Australian fans and lead up to the shows coming up next month?
We're so fucking excited to be coming back down. I mean, it's been way too long. Our last tour, if there's any inkling of what it's going to be like this time, people should get their tickets very soon, because the last one was mostly sold out and was one of the best times of our life. We literally have some of our best shows in Australia, so we cannot wait. So grab your tickets and we'll see you shortly.
I can't wait to see you there. I'll be at the Sydney show, so I'm looking forward to it.
And everyone, if I'm going to bring an extra suitcase, if anyone wants to bring me any Bluey stuff, my kids are obsessed. So if anyone has to jump on any cool Bluey stuff, just bring it to the show.
We'll do. Get the Bluey stuff. I'm going to put that in the description. So if you don't get to the end of the video, you better get the Bluey stuff to the show.
I'm trying to get Dan to learn the song on guitar. So just in between songs, he can just.
If you played that song before you came out, you would get the whole crowd. Like if that was your song.
See, it's funny. Like I don't know if I thought about that, but it's like one of the things where like, are Australians like, okay, yeah, go fuck yourself, or are they like actually into it?
No, we're into it. It's Australians love to make fun of ourselves. That's why the Simpsons episode where they just make fun of Australia. I remember Matt Groening was saying, "Oh, we shouldn't do that. It's a bit offensive." And they're like, "No, trust me, Australians, we're in on the joke. The more you make fun of us."
Australia is one of the only places in the world where being called a cunt is a good thing.
Exactly, it's a term of endearment.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, mate. Cannot wait. You have a good one. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.